Seriously, Mom. Shh. Mom, you and I are very similar in that we love to talk. 9 weeks ago, that 20 seconds of silence would have made me very uncomfortable. But I've come a long way since that, and I want to share pieces of my journey with you. I don't know if you remember, but at the beginning of the semester, in search for what area of communication competence I needed to improve on, I asked you these 17 questions. Let's be honest though, Mom, your ratings didn't really help me because, well, you kind of think I'm perfect. I then went on to rate myself and realized that I needed to improve on my listening. So I read the boring textbook chapters on listening and discovered that I'm not a bad listener, I just love to talk. And then the next question right here, number 6, was the one that really made me realize that's what I needed to work on because I always spend more time talking than listening. Whether you'll admit it or not, I know you can relate. We don't always realize it, but other people tend to get annoyed with our excessive chattering. So for my communication change project, I decided to establish an equilibrium between the amount of time I talk and listen. This is clearly a problem in my life because you can see in this picture, it was interrupted by my talking. So I half-assed the change project for the first few weeks and then realized it was time for a real change. The happiness course I told you about taught me that I have the ability to change. And when people tell me that I talk too much, I can't keep using the excuse, I can't help it. I get it from my mother. Because if I want to change, I can change. As Amelia from the Happiness Course said, neuroplasticity is the idea that our brains change throughout life as a result of day-to-day experiences and activities. We're not stuck with the brains our genes dictate at birth. Rather, our brains take shape throughout life as a result of what we do, who we interact with, how we think, feel, and behave in this world. I do have the ability to change, and the first step to changing was to become more mindful and in the moment. This is something you could really work on, Mom, because what I'm doing tonight does not affect today's activities. I had to learn to encourage myself with positive self-talk because what goes on in my head is so important and so powerful. As Shauna Shapiro pointed out, we all have a set level of happiness. That is, a level that we can go above and below, but ultimately we return to it. Exterior circumstances, like winning the lottery, won't change the set level, but if you're able to change your interior landscape by training your mind, you can actually change your set level of happiness. That just shows the power of the mind, which leads me to the importance of my interpersonal communication. Once I became aware of the conversations in my mind when silence struck and I thought, what conversation can I start to break this awkward silence? I was able to listen to them and stay silent when I needed to stay silent. Awareness has allowed me to start less pointless conversations in my day-to-day life. Well, sometimes that is. Let's be honest, Mom. It wasn't all rainbows and butterflies. Mom, you know me, and you know I fear failure. Rarely do I do things I know I'm going to fail at. So for the first few weeks of this project, I didn't really try because I didn't think it was something I was capable of doing. And then when I started to try, I continued to fail, and I realized that it's okay to fail, and my failures can actually help me. I discovered a common theme in my failure that helped me realize where my flaws lie. I realized that it was harder for me to fight that urge to talk when I was around strangers, the people that I didn't know very well. But when I was around my friends or my family and people I knew pretty well, the silence didn't really bother me. Well, that wasn't always the case either. Mom, I think you and I both found companions that accept that we talk a lot and they kind of just take on the listening role. And I've realized that a lot in my relationships, so I've been trying to encourage Jordan to talk more while I sit back and listen. So my project was originally to establish an equilibrium, but now I'm just trying to work to talk and listen an appropriate amount given the circumstances. It's okay for me to talk more as long as I'm aware that I'm doing so, and it's not every single conversation I'm having. I discovered that there's a right and a wrong time and place for everything. There's no ideal one way to communicate. Communication is situational. Like when I was accepted for my Belize trip, it was okay for me to talk more because I was excited about that. And it's also relational. Like sometimes with residents, I need to help and step up and talk more. Since the start of this project, I've learned to be more self-aware. I find myself naturally talking less, and it's easier for me to realize when people aren't interested in what I have to say. Like in this picture right here, you can see JD's face. If that was the face someone was making at me while I was talking, I'd get the hint to shut up. I've also begun to sympathize with Jordan for my pointless stories filled with unimportant information that he has to constantly sit and listen to. I've improved on telling them less, and I'm continuing to improve on this. Do you think I talk too much? I mean, people say I talk too much, but I don't think I do. I may talk a lot, but tons of people talk more than I do. At the start of this project, I was a lot like this bird. You today, Mom? Well, you still kind of are. Mom, I love you, and I don't intend to put you down, but since I've learned that I have the ability to change, I've come a really long way. And I want to ask you to join me on this journey, and together we can improve ourselves.